Luckin Coffee Starbucks. They call it the biggest coffee war on the planet. In just 3 years, Luckin Coffee, a brand once accused of fraud, opened over 26,000 stores, surpassing Starbucks itself in China. A turnaround that stunned the entire business world. On one side is the symbol of the American dream, representing quality and refined living. On the other side is the Chinese startup challenging that norm with lightning-fast speed, low prices, and adaptability. But this isn't just a coffee story. This is a clash of models, of beliefs, and perhaps a small test case for the 21st century. Will the world choose American-style quality or Chinese-style speed? This battle isn't being fought on the battlefield, but in every latte you hold. And its aroma could be the breath of the global economic future. Let's take a sip together to understand why Starbucks, once an undisputed giant, is gradually losing its position right here in China. And perhaps after this video, you won't look at Starbucks the same way again. Just a few years ago, China was a jewel in Starbucks' global strategy with over 7,800 stores, accounting for nearly 20% of the global total. But now the picture has changed. According to Reuters, Starbucks is considering selling a controlling stake in its China operations in a deal worth up to $5 billion. A sign that the American coffee star is fading in the East. Additionally, data from Euromonitor shows that Starbucks' market share fell from 34% in 2019 to just 14% in 2024. If converted into an image, a 50,000-seat stadium that was once packed with Starbucks fans now has only a few thousand scattered spectators among empty rows. Meanwhile, Luckin Coffee, Coty, and Hey are capturing the minds of young people with prices more than 50% lower, constant promotions, and lightning-fast ordering apps. Many people, frankly, expressed, the price is too high, the products are old, there's a lack of new flavors. I can see Starbucks being completely knocked out of the Chinese market in the near future. I'm an American living in China and Luckin is amazing, much better than Starbucks. Luckin sells coffee for just 13 the price of Starbucks and they all taste like coffee. So, I really don't see any reason to buy Starbucks coffee at all. The last time I was in China, I tried Luckin Coffee and I really liked it. It has more flavor than Starbucks and is much cheaper. The coffee war is no longer about Arabica beans or smooth milk foam. It's a clash between American luxury and Chinese speed. And that was the beginning of the first reason Starbucks is losing to Luckin. Price and speed. Two things that Chinese people are completely redefining the coffee industry. Imagine you walk into a Luckin coffee shop in the heart of Beijing. No more burnt espresso smell. No baristas mispronouncing your name. Instead, there's a colorful menu. Brown sugar pearl latte, coconut milk latte, and coffee milk tea with young coconut flavor. Those cups of coffee were sweet, rich, and as joyful as a 20-year-old's date. And it is that very sweetness that is shaking the Starbucks empire, a brand that once defined bitterness as a symbol of maturity. In 2019, Luckin accidentally created the brown sugar boba latte, a hybrid hit between coffee and milk tea, which was extremely popular with young Chinese people who enjoy sweet drinks. That success led him to invest heavily in R&D, creating a whole caffeine universe with hundreds of new recipes, combining tea, milk, fruit, cream, and syrup. Thanks to this, they expanded their customer base from those who drink to stay awake to those who drink for enjoyment. Blockbusters were released one after another. The newer latte was priced at 18 yuan, accounting for 29% of first-week sales. The coconut milk latte was priced at 20 yen, accounting for 17% of annual sales, becoming that the green tea latte was priced at 22 won, continuing the trend of rising prices and revenue. In 2021 alone, Luckin launched 113 new products, meaning a new flavor every 3 days. Meanwhile, Starbucks only introduces about 20 items per year and has to wait for approval from Seattle. For Gen Z, it's the difference between TikTok and cable television. Speed and novelty almost determine the choice. While Luckin connects with the young people through pleasant sweetness, Starbucks remains true to Italian lattes, Italian cappuccinos, and Italian espressos, all originating from a foreign and serious culture. Bitterness was once a symbol of maturity and clarity. But now the new generation seeks dopamine in every sip of coconut latte, finding more closeness and comfort. How ironic. Starbucks built its empire on the bitter taste of sobriety, while Luckin is building its empire on the sweetness of ease. Bitterness teaches people to grow, but sweetness makes them return. In a society where young people are overworked, the sweetness of Luckin is not just a flavor. It's a subtle dose of dopamine, a small way to reward oneself. And that's why the world has changed its taste. When a generation seeks solace in every sip of coconut latte, bitterness is no longer a symbol of experience, but becomes a memory of the older generation. In the coffee war, sweetness has triumphed over bitterness, at least in China. One user commented, "I also loved Starbucks 2 years ago, but Starbucks only has a few products and hasn't released any new coffee flavors in a long time." Starbucks' lack of innovation and relatively high prices have led to the current situation. But the flavor is just the beginning. A young brand like Luckin can sell cheaper than Starbucks and still survive. Not just because of the taste, but also because of the price. And that will be the element we continue to explore together in the next part. Here's an interesting fact. In Beijing, a cup of Luckin coffee costs only about $2. Meanwhile, Starbucks across the street was still selling $5 cups, and you had to force a smile when they misspelled your name on the cup. Does that sound familiar? Because in China now, coffee is as cheap as instant noodles. And that's the secret to Luckin's success in taking down Starbucks. Luckin is giving out coupons like a summer shower. 30%, 40%, or even 50% off, and the deals never end. Every morning when I open the app, it's a small joy. Congratulations! You've just received 9.9 yuan for a coconut latte. The Chinese call it cheap fun, but it's still fun. But Starbucks is different. They believe in premium experiences, meaning you have to pay to feel special. But in an economy where graduates are unemployed, workers are having their hours cut, and young people are seeing their wages reduced, who would want to be special anymore? Now, people just want something cheap and delicious and fast without having to talk much. One audience member commented, "As a Chinese consumer, I think price is really important. The quality is almost the same, but Starbucks is much more expensive." Consumers are smart enough to make rational choices. Many people also express their agreement below. "I'm a foreigner living in China, and I can tell you the simple reason is that Luckin makes coffee that's 10 times better, but only a third of the price of Starbucks." The comments sound harsh, but they're true. For what Starbucks calls a premium experience for many people now is just unnecessarily expensive. Chinese people are entering an era of consumption downgrade, spending less and thinking more. And Luckin seized on that like a seasoned politician understanding voter psychology. Don't talk ideals, talk price. And in fact, behind the coupon strategy is a counterintuitive but clever philosophy. When consumers feel financially hurt, they don't need to be inspired. They need to be comforted. A cheap cup of coffee getting coupons every day made them feel that the world was still pleasant, that someone understood their wallet. And in consumer psychology, empathy always triumphs over arrogance. So, Luckin doesn't just sell coffee. They sell the feeling of being cared for at a low price with sweet deals and with notifications like you get an extra 10% off today. Starbucks sells an experience, but in this day and age, that experience is as expensive as an old-fashioned promise. Therefore, the coffee war is no longer between good taste and bad taste, but between getting a discount and being appreciated. And sometimes people just need a 50% off announcement to feel like life is still fair. But here's the interesting part. Luckin isn't just changing the price of coffee. They're changing the way Chinese people buy coffee altogether. It's no longer about going out for a drink. It's about clicking buy. And it's that very habit that's rewriting the rules of global business. I used to think Starbucks was invincible until I went to China last year. I see Luckin Coffee on every corner. Fast, cheap, and completely digital. No waiting in line. No need for complicated ordering. Just scan the code, grab, and go. This is the experience of a customer living in China. Instead of the image of a barista standing at the counter and calling out customers' names to pick up their orders, at Luckin Coffee, all you need is a tap in the app and 3 minutes later, your coffee is ready at the pickup counter. No greetings, no eye contact. Sounds cold, maybe. But for Chinese guests, it's both trendy and profitable. According to statistics, nearly 100% of Luckin's orders are placed through the app. No cash register, no waiting in line, no how's your day going. The kind of question that everyone knows isn't sincere. Instead, it's a formula that operates with second-by-second precision. No tables and chairs helping to reduce rental space. Cashless avoids errors and prevents delays. No barista counter. No need to pay for a smile. Every square meter earns money. It doesn't cater to emotions. A Luckin store only needs 2 to 3 employees compared to 6 to 8 at Starbucks. Operating costs are reduced by up to 40%. In a world where every penny of profit is squeezed thin like a receipt, that could be a fatal blow. If you rewind time to the Co-era, you'll see this difference more clearly than ever. Starbucks with its third-place model, a place to sit, meet and connect, suddenly became no place when the city shut down. Luckin, on the other hand, their grab-and-go model is almost immune to lockdowns. Offices reopen, students return to class. Luckin is right at the gate. The 2022 figures speak for themselves. Starbucks saw a 44% drop in revenue in China, while Luckin increased by 41%. Same pandemic, 2 outcomes like black coffee and coffee with milk. But what's more frightening isn't that they sell more, but they are reprogramming consumer habits. Chinese people don't go out to buy coffee anymore. They tap to get it. One touch and it's done. No communication, no emotion, no waiting. Coffee became a data service. For Luckin, each order is not just about money. It's about information. Who drinks what, when, where, and what their habits are. They don't just sell coffee. They train algorithms to know you like a latte at 8:12 a.m. with an extra 10 a meal of almond milk. Starbucks is still teaching its employees to ask customers, "Would you like to add any toppings?" Questions that I can now answer better. And that seems to be the biggest blow to Starbucks. Technology has replaced humans. The barista, the friendly face of Starbucks, has now become a static asset in the mobile world. Luckin doesn't need sentiment, they need speed. They don't create connections, they create habits. And in the post-pandemic economy where people are afraid to touch, afraid to speak, afraid to waste time, silence is the new luxury service. The question is, as the world gets used to silent coffee, is Starbucks a brand that thrives on conversation, entering a period of permanent silence? There's a funny saying going around in China. If you don't see any Luckin coffee shops around you, you're probably in the Gobi Desert. It sounds funny, but it's true. In 2024, Luckin had over 22,000 stores, 7,700 of which were franchises. In other words, a new shop pops up every 2 hours, faster than Starbucks opened in the US for an entire decade. Meanwhile, Starbucks still maintains its philosophy that each store is a labor of love. They rent high-end premises, train staff, build experiences, and then spend several months getting a new location open. Luckin is different. They don't nurture the spirit. They breed an army of clones. Each store is a true clone. Small, compact, identical, and 40% cheaper to operate than Starbucks. Luckin's secret lies in its asset-light, speed-heavy model. Instead of doing everything themselves, they opened up to local investors. No joining fees, no annual fees, no revenue sharing. Luckin only takes a percentage when the store is profitable. Does that sound familiar? It's like a win-win situation in business movies, except this time it's actually a win. Small investors saw the opportunity for quick profits with an average payback period of only 13 to 14 months. So, money poured in like water. Luckin doesn't need to borrow money or wait for board approval. Shops are popping up every place: schools, hospitals, subway stations, and the basement of shopping malls. Starbucks is still considering its strategic location. Each store is like a small monument with every brick carefully chosen. While Luckin only needed an electrical outlet and a few square meters of space. One side was building a temple, the other was setting up tents, and the tents went up faster. Luckin's cleverness lies not only in its speed of expansion, but also in how it spreads risk. If a store loses, they don't lose much. If an area is successful, they replicate it immediately. That's the strategy of someone who isn't afraid to be wrong, because being wrong is cheap, too. Starbucks is the opposite. Each mistake costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's why they're afraid of taking risks, afraid of experimenting, and even afraid of failure. In a mobile market, Starbucks is being held back by its own caution. It sounds funny, but it's also thought-provoking. Luckin is redefining brand power. It's no longer about a few grand flagship stores, but about being every place to the point where you have no choice but to drink their coffee. You see, presence is the new dominance. And in this game, Starbucks is like the old general strategizing, while Luckin is the young soldiers running all over the map. The question is, when a brand can replicate speed like this, are they building an empire or mass-producing the consumer habits of an entire nation? Because sometimes power doesn't need to be unique. It just needs to be every place. You know what's interesting? It took Starbucks decades to become a global icon. And Luckin Coffee only needed an 18-year-old girl and a few videos on Douyin. In 2022, Eileen Gu, an American-born freestyle skier competing for China, won 3 medals at the Beijing Olympics. And just a few weeks later, she became the face of Luckin, a stroke of genius. Eileen is young, healthy, and dynamic. Speaks both English and Chinese. And most importantly, she is a symbol of modern China. Confident, integrated, but not stereotyped.